Good evening and welcome to the New Athens. You need to emerge from this COVID-1984 pandemic with the tools to create a new world. The New Athens, the blockchain think tank, brings you those tools to understand the chaos swirling around us and the forum to debate how a new generation will take control from the GoVidiots currently mismanaging our nation and our world with a breakaway civilization leaving us behind. Watch our Friday Night Lights live stream from the bunker on the New Athens YouTube channel for the best that is thought and said on the issues of the day. Ask not what the New Athens can do for you. Ask what you can do for the New Athens. If you like it, leave a like. If you like the content, please subscribe and share. I'm Lorenzo Mefsud, founder of the New Athens. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Hello, and welcome to the New Athens. I'm Lorenzo Mefsud, founder of the New Athens, and I'm here tonight with Jay Tronica, Jay Udo-Demi. Pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lorenzo.
Jay is a musician.
Yes, sometimes.
Futurist.
Yes, I suppose.
Breaker of dynasties.
And also pariah.
But yes, outcast and pirate and bandit.
Yes.
Or as we all are here at the New Athens. Well, welcome tonight. And we will be discussing the destruction of nation states through tech, Jay's new concept, which I think accords very well with some of the stuff we've been covering here on the show over the past few months. And now we're just emerging out of this COVID-1984 lockdown. Tomorrow will be Independence Day, and we're flying the flag in advance. Rogan has a flag. We have a flag. Of course, this is like a proof of concept. Jay was asking before, like, why do we fly the flag of the Republic here? And so it's a kind of a proof of concept. Apart from ancient Athens, which was a direct democracy, as a republic and as a means of, as we saw on the Kaiser report, like emerging from that social engineer reality of the British Empire, America was the means of and its revolution was the means of coming out from underneath those monarchist structures and providing this proof of concept for a new way of doing governance. And so, although that has its own issues in the ensuing centuries, we don't have another model at the moment, apart from, say, British democracy and common law, the American Republic, ancient Athens. These are kind of tools we can use to try and create this new world. But, unless we go down the path of China and the social credit system, then we need to start looking at the things that have at least been a little bit successful. And so that's kind of where we're looking at what we're looking at with this blockchain think tank is how to take these tools of the past and turn them into a pro-human future. And so that's the kind of
justification for this. I think that's a good place to start, but you have to unpack that whole concept really. So when you think about failed states,
yes,
states that haven't failed, states that have been successful, and you analyze whether the Union, as my lovely friends in the Confederate States would say, the enemy, they won. But were they actually successful at doing what they wanted to do?
Yeah.
And where we find ourselves right now, in terms of the way that what we call the global capitalist structure seems to sit, it's actually, if you look at what they were trying to do originally, I would say they probably haven't actually succeeded. And one thing that we are, I suppose, reticent about in terms of the way we look at politics and history is that there is a certain amount of information that we have and a certain amount of information that we aren't aware that we have. And because of that, the way language is structured actually changes the way these things are. So if you go back to the Kaiser report, he was saying how
So by the way, we'll go through some elements of this Kaiser report just from yesterday.
Yep.
I'm leaving the link in the show notes so you can follow along. And yes, it spoke to a lot of what we were talking about. Yes, it spoke to a lot of
what we say. But the thing is, I also have to call up certain things and the language around it, because America wasn't set up in a way where it was complete freedom. And yes, economically, there were certain elements of that, but it wasn't set up in a vacuum. So it still had a certain amount of imperialist elements to it by taking over someone else's land. I mean, that's just the honest truth. There's no way around that. And on top of that, if you're looking for a state that functions as a, sorry, let me turn my phone off because
at least we're in here having connection to the world.
That's all right.
Not fully in the bunker.
Well, tech, it's all around us, isn't it?
Yes.
The fact is that a state as a function should also take care of its citizens. Yeah. And the citizens should contribute to the state, and the state itself should look after them. It's a cycle. It's a pact, and it's a contract that you have between state and
so we've
society.
been looking at the social contract and several shows and several guests, and we've been examining this idea that actually the social contract is this one contract that disrupts the concept of contract law. Contract law is an agreement between two parties, so we don't fight. Yes. We can set out the terms and we can come to an agreement, then we can sign on the dotted line, get it executed by deed with a witness, and then everyone's happy with the notion of what we've signed up for. Of course, the social contract is this one contract where you never sign up.
No, because
unless you migrate into this country, say you have the tests of like, do you know what 1066 is, and will you swear, by the flag and so on, to the Queen? Like, as free men on the land who've been born here, we don't need to swear to the allegiance to the monarch. Like we don't.
Yeah, you're born into it.
We never asked to subject ourselves.
Of course, but then my point about the success of the American state and its idea of providing unity and freedom to all men was that when that was decided, the concept of men itself and what the word meant didn't actually account for all men, nor does it technically account for certain classes of women as well.
Yes.
So when you look at it as the bastion of freedom and the thing that you want to base whatever some new organization is going to be about, you have to understand how it was set up, what it was set up to do, and actually what the semantics about the words that were written down in the Constitution are.
Yes,
we
hold these truths to be self-evident. Yes, and so on. And I understand that you have to pass the language of the Declaration of Independence and of the Constitution. There's a historical argument about inequity of the setup. And then we can also look at today. So very interestingly, Ish, friend of the show, predicted, and we've been looking at prediction markets, predicted a few weeks ago that there would be an offer of citizenship from the British government to the Cantonese from Hong Kong to use the British overseas national status to come 3 million to come to Britain. And since China has reneged on the 50-year deal of two systems, one nation, two systems.
Quick question though, don't you feel like we're in a cycle? Because if we go to post-war Britain, just after the Second World War, what happened was the government went out. We were like, don't really have that many people around, and we need to rebuild the economy.
Yeah.
So what they do, they went out to the Empire, so the Commonwealth, and said to all the Commonwealth, who technically were British citizens at the time, if you come here, we'll, accept you into this great land that we are, Great Britain, and you can have jobs, so on and so forth. Which they did.
That was the big problem, because they needed to decide whether they would have MPs from the Empire in Westminster, or whether they'd make a citizenship exchange offer.
So exactly, I was about to come on to.
Yeah.
But the actual key with that was they also got rid of a whole load of people. So actually 3.1 million people went the other way. And so what that allowed the British government to do was to restructure the way the state was set up here. And in the same way, you've got a situation where it seems a bit on the nose, right? You've got big situation happening. Obviously, it's not a world war, it's a pandemic. Social structures being, I suppose, looked at and put under a lot of pressure. And then suddenly something happens to a whole load of technically expats or British citizens, let's call it in the larger sense of the world. And so now we're bringing them back.
Yes.
Are we going to benefit from that? I'm not saying that we are, we're not. I'm not for and against it. I'm just saying that it's interesting how things seem to happen in cycles.
if you look at universal basic income, we've been discussing this a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Yang ran in the Democratic primary on the single issue ticket of
Good
universal
candidate.
basic income,
Good candidate.
saying, okay, we've taken all the factories to China, but we're going to have all the factories in China in the future. We're going to have full automation, AI, and mechanization. So all of the working class, the manual and skilled labor class in America will be out of jobs. They will need a universal basic income to keep the consumer market going. Now we've done in the West a proof of concept of universal basic income, but not with the working class, with the bourgeois, with the middle class who've gone into their remote desktop at home during this pandemic. And what have people done? I mean, they've been wanking on TikTok with this Chinese
but then
hypnosis
my
system,
thing is,
and many people have been like taking the teat of the government, and getting the cash, and then they've not been starting entrepreneurship. They've not been educating themselves, and there's been a stagnation in our society. People have been smoking loads of weed. Drug use has gone up massively. All the drug dealers are putting up their prices. And now
where are they going to get drugs from?
And now including those stats in the GDP figures.
Yeah, of course. But so my thing is that,
but what I was trying to get to was the Cantonese are really hardworking people, and they are go-getting, and they're the kinds of people who we need to jumpstart the economy.
Yes.
And because they have the work ethic that we, as these middle class,
but this is what the government thought. This is what the government thought about the situation, and guess what happened? Windrush. That's what happened. It wasn't like they didn't think those people were going to come into the UK and be lazy and whatever. When they originally put that order out, they thought all the citizens from India, Uganda, Nigeria, Jamaica, all those kind of places would come in and bolster the economy because they would be hardworking. It wasn't like this crazy thing where they were like, "Oh, let's bring them all over, and then they'll just get on the dole." Like there'd be no point in that. So that wasn't the plan. Yeah. So, is this a situation where there needs to be more thought around this? And of course, we're in an unfortunate situation where China's acted the way they have. So it's not like the government's gone, "Oh, well, yeah, we'll just do it because we want to." The situation where there's a lot of, I suppose, there's a serious situation happening there, and there's a serious effect on people's lives. And so obviously you put people's lives first, but there needs to be a wider conversation around what we're actually trying to do. Because, if you look at the American economy, this period of time has seen a certain amount of rise in shares in the stock exchange and in the markets. But the American economy doesn't function on saving. Once you start saving, the economy stagnates. You have to be spending. People have to spend
$5 on a Starbucks.
If they do not continue to spend, the whole thing falls apart. And that's why I come back to the whole point of what were the actual originators of the American states, the Union. What were they trying to create?
Well, the US was a nation of colonists, as you say. There's not a nation of immigrants, it was a nation of colonists.
Exactly.
And those colonists were essentially who created the American Revolution structure were English common law barristers. And that's why we have this articulated legal document of the Constitution, which sets up this kind of proof of concept. And one thing I did want to articulate with regard to the historical problem versus problems we have today, and then moving perhaps forward, people do vote with their feet. And, there are, of course, many problems with the West, but there's massive inward migration because although the West is massively imperfect, people want to come here because other places are yet more imperfect. Now that may back into the historical.
It's like a bluff, right? If you employ Keynesianism, then it's always going to look sexy. It's just the way it is. People are always you can't expect people to not want to come to a place where it seems like they'll be able to accrue wealth and spend wealth in a way they can show it off. And that even goes to the point of Britishness versus Americanness, right? There's a massive drain of talent from Britain to the US when it comes to technology, when it comes to culture, especially if you look at perfect example, black actors. So many of them over there. Why? Because they get more jobs. They can actually be proud of who they are. And there's a whole load of thing around the black conversation in America right now, which we won't unpack. But that's due to the fact that there is an element, and I say, obviously I'm speaking broadly. Everyone has their own individual points of view. But there's an element of the fact that the economy is based around spending rather than saving.
Yeah,
it's just sexier. Who doesn't want to drive a cool car? Who doesn't want to live in a big house?
yes.
And there's a lot more space there, let's be honest. So
unless you're in the cities where people actually want to be. You see that there's one sense in which we're also talking about metropolises. We're talking about New York. We're talking about LA.
LA, of course.
We're talking about San Francisco with tech. We're talking about maybe Chicago for some finance stuff.
Yeah.
But and Washington for politics. And so we have these four great cities. New York for entrepreneurship and finance. Washington for politics. Tech in San Francisco, and then American export culture in LA, and so it's actually these four cities that are attracting young single people.
I think there's more to it
because they're the great metropolises where you get shit done.
There's more to it though. There's more to it. I mean, there's also people that are going over there for the Arizona lifestyle, the Texas lifestyle. Don't get bought into the perception. The reality of America, it's a massive place.
Yes.
With a lot of things to offer.
Continent, yeah,
exactly. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there. So the attraction of the individual, or the attraction to the individual, should I say, is something that can come in any way. But the economic attraction is very simple. It's a case of come here, make your paper money, spend your paper money, have nice things, and you've done what we've always wanted to do, which is the American dream. That's the PR plan. That's the whole PR plan.
I mean, I've lived in New York, and I found it great for tech acceleration because they have a culture of yes. They have a culture.
Of course.
In Britain we have a cocaine-based no culture, and in New York they have a speed-based, Adderall-based yes culture.
Speed? Are we still doing speed? What is this? 1995?
And so you have these two different ambits where to get to further your project in a British reality, you have to go through a whole load of establishment gatekeeping. Of course. Whereas when you migrate to America, actually, especially when you migrate to America, I found, because they have a read on like, oh, you're from South Bend, Indiana, you're from Hicksville. Like internally, there is, as you say, it's a continent and they have an internal structure. But when you float in from outside, you get a special place. You get the exoticism and you get the externality of not being in their social hierarchy. So you can float in quite high, and as long as you have something to offer.
There's also a certain amount that will be afforded to you as a British person. Just the way it is.
They're highly Anglophone.
But we still come back to that issue of, are these structures actually working? So I'm not going to say that I'm going to lump all the West in one, system, because there's so many different types of countries. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, if you look at Austria, Germany, England, France, America, Italy.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, it says it's a country, but there you go.
It always has. States always will be.
I mean, these aren't necessarily all the same system.
No.
And so
what we can see is a global geopolitical economic system, the sort of this spider, which is siphoning off all the wealth into US corporations, the US administrative state, the deep state, the EU functionality of the same, and then the Chinese node where all the production happens. And so this kind of superstructure, which we're calling a breakaway civilization of the social engineers, of the command and control network, which is then, as you mentioned in your manifesto, quite interesting. You were talking about China, but China is this sandbox for how to do the internet in a command and control way. So DARPA let the internet out, the TCP/IP protocol out, and DNS, and it created this anarchic web of interlinking of people who could never speak to one another before across the world and within nations, and they were sharing language, sharing understanding, sharing new language, sharing new ideas. And then, like, since 1970, this exponential growth curve has happened of knowledge and understanding through the internet in the West. And at that time, the China structure was coming together with Kissinger and Chairman Mao to take all the industry out and put it all the industry and put it in the Chinese setup, so they could socialize off the profits to the Chinese Communist Party and the US, the sort of Anglo-US elite. But what we see then is, China then has this inverse blockchain of the social credit system where the smartphone is a tool of surveillance like 1984. Orwell thought it was going to be
microphones everywhere. Actually, it's cameras as well.
Well, I mean,
and it's your wallet and so on. So what you see
Mhm.
is this command and control structure of 1.5 billion people.
Mhm.
You said that they had a unified entity. I think that the Chinese Communist Party is probably just quite good at suppression and repression.
See, I don't know. I mean,
Do you think they're on side?
No. Well,
I mean,
of the government. You don't need to be on side, and this is the big thing about the sort of somnambulance into whatever we're going to turn into, and that's the sort of. I mean, these are all theories, not rather than anything that you can prove or disprove. I mean, first of all, you'd have to have some real serious hacking ability to be able to prove half the stuff I'm talking about. However, there is a certain element of an inevitability of things. And as much as we discuss, I mean, you can look at the trend, even if you look at technological determinism and the way that things are moving, and obviously you understand that every 10 years things speed up by a certain amount and they continue to speed up and so on and so forth. And it's genuinely inevitable that we are going to get to a point where our online lives will be nearly as important or as fiscally important as our physical lives. Yeah. And at that point,
that's when there's going to be a crossover. The social credit system is then re-imported using the track and trace apps. Actually, they're using this global crisis. I think you're reinserting that system into the West. And I think getting us used to.
Lorenzo, you're probably 10 years behind. This way, what I'm thinking about is there's a point where your digital life will become more important than your physical life, especially if you're in a state.
Do you think that time has passed?
No, well, I think it's in the future, but the time to think about it or the time to get to grips with it has passed, and it's not something that people are really aware that they're doing. So when I talk about the Chinese government, it's not like there's this massive, great cap, by the way. It's not like there's this massive. There's not this massive like overarching evil. Well, once again, I don't know, but I just feel like people that buy into all this conspiracy theory crap aren't necessarily honest with themselves, and it's an easy way to blame the boogeyman. It's it's Big Brother in 1984 to go with Orwellian. Yeah. Yes. So at some point of time, the system itself will always protect itself. There's no way that you can create a mega system or a sort of mega structure and it will not look after its own interests. So if
sponsored by Champ.
Exactly. So if you look at that, if you look at any big system, and that's even if you look at civilization as a system, civilizations will always try and protect themselves. They're not going to let themselves just be destroyed or disintegrated. When the Roman Empire was falling apart, they didn't just go, you know what, we had a good run, let's just walk off into the sunset. No, they try to fight the Visigoths, they try to fight, all the different people that were fighting them, all different, but they tried. Because the system will always try and protect
legions back from Britain,
exactly.
abandoned it to the Saxons, and they tried to preserve the rotten middle.
So in the same way, if a state becomes digitally aware, what it will do is it will try and protect that digital status itself. And what it will also do is think about in any way that any new civilization happens or any new state happens, it will start to try and amass resources. And those resources now are digital resources. They're not physical resources as per se, but digital resources need physical resources as well.
Yes, and also if you become immersed and immured in the digital reality, someone with a club like a Visigoth will come along and smash your head in and use your your blockchain social contract for firewood in the same way they use the Library of Rome for firewood.
Yes, to a point, but
so you don't want to over.
But how's he going to get there if you? How's he going to get there
exclusively
if you used all the cobalt and all the, I suppose,
shout out to John Major and the cobalt.
I mean, once you've used all that stuff, then the Visigoth's he's got nothing to do. Come and get you with. He's got to get a ship to come and get you. He's got to get a plane. There's something that he's got to get.
So push out the border. Yeah,
exactly. So the point is that whatever this digital state is going to take sort of shape in or as, is going to require resources. And so as a digital state, it's going to go after the smaller digital states that exist at that time. So the sort of smaller states that don't have the wherewithal or the nous to create their own digital state at that level will be swallowed up. They will be swallowed up because they do not have the capacity or the opportunity to be able to even record their own data. Simple as that. So what they're going to do, they're going to go to someone that has that capacity. They're going to say to you, oh, you know what? We need to transfer all our records from paper to digital, but we can't storage because we don't have massive server farms underwater. But you do. So I'll tell you what, we'll employ you to do it. And at that point, the person that has the physical control of that data is the winner.
Well, currently, those entities are Google and the Chinese Communist Party. On a grand scale, maybe Russia has a bit, but not really.
That we know.
We're not sure about exactly where they're at.
Yeah.
Although their tech infrastructure is really good. Like if you go on StreamYard, we use StreamYard, it's better than Zoom. If you go on vContact, it's better than Facebook. If you go on Telegram, it's better than WhatsApp. So actually, there's a Russian tech platform which is quite advanced, and so we don't normally think about them. But nevertheless, it's we've got the big tech node in San Francisco, along with DARPA, which in the Pentagon, and then we have the Chinese Communist Party. These are the two entities that really have that, as you say, that emergent breakaway civilization style ability to provide that tech platform.
And I think that the real sort of next step is going to be who really gets control of commercial quantum processing, because quantum computing is the sort of frontier I think that will change everything. Because if they're able to do it in a commercial way and do it in a viable way, then
according to Moore's law, every 18 months,
of course, it must happen. It must happen.
If there's enough cobalt, so we can make the physical architecture small enough, and then
completed. Is it not come to an end now?
No, it's still ish. It's still
more laws goes until there's a quantum leap.
Quantum leap, yes. So we come back to
and then point. And then it goes exponential.
But then at that point, it's the there's the argument of, do we reach the singularity, and then will the technology itself become sentient?
AI eat us?
But then that's a whole.
There's the letter on AI that all of the deep mind scientists signed up to. Stephen Hawking before he died, which said it was like very positive about AI, but then if you actually look in the footnotes, it's one of the footnotes, the addenda, that says, and the AI might eat us, by the way. They kind of leave it in that AI letter.
It's a quantum prediction market. Everything is a prediction.
Then
quantum knows. Where do the human beings lie? Or do we just mere puppets?
Exactly.
So what
have you seen? What's that new? Have you seen what's that program we watched the other day? Deus, but it's called Devs, even though it's a joke. That's the whole point of that. It's at the point that you can once you can compute to an infinitesimal number, then at what point are you acting on instinct or prediction? What's the difference?
And novelty and tradition.
But that's predictable.
Well, if you can,
it only feels original to you.
If you can calculate every single possible, I'm saying, if these are infinitesimal numbers.
So the quantum idea is you can do all of the options at once. You don't need to do testing on each option in serial. You can in parallel, one after the other, you can in parallel just do all of the options at the same time. And so that's why, for instance, we imagine with a quantum computer brute force hack a block in the blockchain.
Exactly.
Because you can look at all of the passwords simultaneously,
exactly.
and instead of going through them in order, which is the security of the blockchain block. So that's just a little sort of down on what that is. But a quantum prediction market, we've been looking here at the think tank in the past day at what Dominic Cummings has sent out this week as to his crash course for the SPADs. So he was trying to just fire all the SPADs. He's trying to get rid of all humanities graduates in the policy unit. And now he said, okay, well, it hasn't really worked yet. So I'm going to have to just accept these humanities graduates and give them a crash course in statistics. So we've been looking at Tetlock, we've been looking at Super Forecasting's book It's 2 books that he says everyone should read, and I'll leave them in the links below. We've got the PDFs, so you can just read it or have your phone read it to you, which is very useful if you're doing work or anything else. It's the audiobooks, but automated audiobooks are a really good way of accelerating yourself when you're doing some other work that you can tune out and tune into.
I suppose so.
So Tetlock, what we've downloaded from him so far is this notion of prediction markets, and the way to access practically for new startups and for entrepreneurship, the way to access government money at the moment is through Dominic Cummings and the policy unit. He is taking control. Fired Mark Sedwill last weekend. Sir Humphrey Appleby is no more. He's decapitated the blob. And so the civil service is now out, and Cummings' reality is in this country. We're saying, we all want to go to America because it's got the yes culture, and you can individually succeed or you can build something. But actually here now we can change the conversation. And last week in our insider show with Martin Skinner, who's going to be coming here soon, actually, we were looking at changes in the planning laws, which will allow for microhomes and allow for people to get on the property ladder in a smart city setup.
But then
Ish and I were talking about a crypto mortgage and so on.
Yeah, so I mean so all these things are predilected on you having your own digital sovereignty.
Yes. So this is what something that was very interesting that you mentioned in your manifesto. And so just to finish off that point with the prediction markets. So the way that we access government money for our new projects now, and this is kind of, it's one guy, Dominic Cummings, and he wants you to express yourself like this as a forecaster. He wants you to take a prediction of something you say will or will not happen. He wants you to give a percentage, preferably a high percentage, obviously, like 90 or 10% that it will or won't happen, rather than a low resolution percentage, about 40 to 60% staying towards the mean. And then he wants you to give a specific time horizon of when you believe that thing will or will not happen. And then you can falsify and really get the scientific method going on like what you want to do in the future. And so that's the way to start thinking about expressing yourself. And read Tetlock Super Forecaster. We're going to give you the PDF later. But this notion of credentialism is then broken by us trying really hard to make falsifiable claims that we can actually demonstrate are right or wrong, rather than using flowery adjectives of humanities graduates, which then choose to fuzz over the detail, the sort of the resolution detail of exactly what we're trying to predict. And the example that Tetlock gives, which I think is very interesting, of what not to do, and it is best to work from the via negativa, is the CND in the 70s, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, said the fact of nuclear arsenals existing means that nuclear war is inevitable. Yeah. If not today, then tomorrow. Yeah. If not tomorrow, next week. If not next week, next year. If not next year, in 10 years' time.
I mean, statistically, it depends on the way you interpret the numbers.
Firstly, it didn't happen yet.
Well, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet. And secondly, what you're doing with that kind of ramping up of time is you're giving yourself every chance to be right or wrong. And so you're not planting a flag, making a statement, because you're not saying, oh, it will happen in 5 years. You're saying it happening any time between now and Judgment Day. Anyway, that was just a little sideline on some research we've been doing as how to actually get started. Yeah. But your notion of digital sovereignty was very interesting, and coming back to some of the stuff in the Kaiser report, because the thinking about our proofs of concept, whether it be common law or the American Republic or ancient Athens or the blockchain, with Bitcoin can be, you could see it as a new form of consensual social contract. Like, what do we do?
It's not a social contract at that point. It's a physical statement of
what does society do? Society makes contracts. I invite you to treat. Yeah. You give me some terms. We revise the terms. We sign and we complete the contract, which then has a term and a maturity, and then that's the relationship we are governed by. And so I don't make my children try and kill you for 7 generations, and you don't make your children try and kill me for 7 generations in a blood feud. That's what fundamentally contract law is coming up against. It's this idea of fairness and something a ledger that we can all trust. Yes. And so the de minimis like version of a consensual social contract could look something like, have you got beer?
I'll get you one.
But that's
could
all
look like
great.
a Bitcoin. Could look like a Bitcoin ledger.
Yeah, that's all great as long as information isn't lost.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to social contracts, the problem you have is that when there is a ruling group of people who are able to reconstruct information in a way and also have it portrayed in a certain way, this is going back to history now, it's very easy to then forget the past. And when I say forget the past, it goes down to the concept of a priori knowledge and posteriori knowledge. There's an element of no thanks. There's an element of things that
cheers, Jake.
That's all right. We inherently are supposed to know. Now, whether we know them or not is irrelevant. If we're supposed
known knowns,
exactly.
things we know,
Exactly. And as long as the information keeps getting passed down, then it's fine. So if you and I have a contract and we decide not to kill each other, then our children know that we decide not to kill each other. Their children know that we decide not to kill each other.
Yes.
That information's still there. But at some point, if there's a break in the information, then they might kill each other. Well, they have no idea that we exist.
That's what the blockchain is attempting to do. It's attempting to take. I mean, we're putting together a paper at the moment. I gave it to Jordan Peterson in person when he was here in 2017 before he went into his coma. But this paper articulates how, and it's one of the first papers we're putting out with the blockchain think tank, articulates how blockchain can be a kind of analog for DNA.
Yes.
So DNA is very good at replicating information, as you say. It's it's astonishingly good.
I mean,
think about how many viable infants are born versus how many miscarriages there are. It's very few. Like genes have got very, very good at hi-fi information replication over many copying events.
Yeah.
Like, so your genes are copied down the generations. Okay, they recombine, and they also recombine well.
But there's a possibility of corruption, and also edits that don't necessarily come out correctly.
There's fertile mutation and there's deleterious mutation. I get it, but overall, the language of Gattaca, the language of the gene bases, is orders of magnitude better than libraries, than human language, than music, than paintings, than poetry, than liturgy, than computer code at replicating. So we need to learn from our own bodies. We need to learn from the genes how to replicate information if we're to create a long-term civilization with a long-term outlook, as you say.
But then the biggest issue we have at that is the things that you pointed out. Language is a terrible carrier of information. That's just the honest truth. And not because it can't inform and it can't transmit information. It's just that
it's too many. Go on.
Just that language itself is generally reductive. So what you have is a situation where older languages can convey a lot more information than a younger language. So in some languages, concepts will have multiple words.
Yes.
And that concept's in different situations.
Well, like fast and fast, or I'm stuck fast,
I was
going to say moving fast.
I was going to say more like love, for example. So if you look at love in Greek,
agape, eros,
so many different types. But then in English, one word.
Yeah.
So now
that can be more poetically vibrant because you can, with one word, access many of the meanings at once. But you're right; it's less granular.
But what it does is so it goes back to your classics thing. You sort of it's semantics really. And so when you have concepts that you have to structure to then create your reality around that structure, like most people, I mean, I don't know. I know I dream in English because I speak English. So if there's a thing I can't express in English, then I genuinely can't dream about it, or I can't remember I dreamt about it.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, if there are things that we lose sight of down time, then we're not able to express that.
Exactly. And this is actually very interesting. And I've been following this, and we've been looking at it in terms of political correctness and this notion of this kind of Orwellian notion of deleting elements of history, elements of language, because the outcomes are not desired.
It's sanitization.
But the problem is that you say you can't dream in English unless you have a word for it.
Also, because vocabularies are getting smaller and smaller, because the smaller the vocabulary is, the less precisely you're able to
talk about things and describe things.
So the more gradations of meaning, as you say, the more there's a one-to-one relationship between a Platonic concept and a word or single word which expresses that concept, the more granular and accurate our communication, or even more.
So that's why if you look at Mandarin compared to Cantonese, Mandarin has a lot more characters.
Cantonese has a lot more tones. Cantonese has 7 tones.
That's true. But there are more words. And if you look at, as I said, the older languages, even look at things like Romansh, Romanian, as opposed to, and Latin-based language, as opposed to non-Latin, like English, for example, there are more words.
Well, languages like Portuguese and Latin, Portuguese and Romanian are. Philip Firzov has been doing some research on the etymology of Latin languages at the moment, comparing French, Portuguese, Spanish, Romanian, Italian to Latin.
You should put Romansh in there.
And what we found was that actually the further you get from Rome, the place, the more the languages that filter through over time are half remembered.
Yes, definitely.
Truths of soldiers who were stationed there and got stuck there. So Portuguese and Romanian are very good examples. So he is in Latin is est, but in Romanian he is sunt, which is they are in Latin.
Yes.
So what you can see here is the bastardization of, over time, these communities have become cut off from the major node network, and then you've had these ossified, little fossilized mistakes.
But that is
how this
all language is developed like that. And so when we lose sight of certain elements of our past because of the way that, unfortunately, the Victorians edited history, basically, you lose sight of things like Uralic, which, and also the original languages around the Caucasus region, which, and also the fact that, you know, we're still talking about Indo-European languages. Our languages developed from there, not the other way around. And these things they've been edited in a way that if someone was to tell you that, you know, there are certain words that exist in Sanskrit that also exist in English, you'd be like, how's that possible?
Yeah.
Because according to history, those two didn't talk.
Well, Lithuanian is there's so many Sanskrit scholars in Lithuania because it's the most similar living language to the original Indo-European root,
which is Uralic,
and that's really quite, so to get Lithuanian from, you know,
but it's the same with Finnish. Finnish also is one of those languages.
Yes, and
Finnish, Hungarian, and also the Basque language.
Basque, yes, Euskadi.
I was in a band called the Well Hungarians.
So all those things they're all consequential though, because at some point when you get to whatever it is that we emerge into, when this digital, I suppose, platform exists where you're able to communicate, exist online in a way where it's more important than your physical existence, whoever owns the data, whoever owns that sovereignty will then become the power. So
do you think the way we're going to communicate is going to evolve past language?
It depends. I mean, if Elon Musk gets his way and we get Neuralink, then yeah. And so again,
what he said on Joe Rogan 2 weeks ago was, we need, like, the brain has a high bit rate of information that it can process.
Comes down to the point about language.
The computer has a high bit rate of information that it can process. Our thumbs and mouths and conscious minds are very low bit rate, so we have to go through this bottleneck of data.
What's that bottleneck?
So that is the human narrative.
No, it isn't. That bottleneck is language.
The limiter of language.
Language.
Yeah,
language
is
that
theory, and you have all these apes kind of like getting high on psychedelics or whatever.
Sounds like a Joe Rogan thing.
And then suddenly, we get the written word and God and everything. And
by
so
eating
we're limited by the
mushrooms.
written word, and we've not been able to evolve past that. And I think possibly before we really kind of like got submerged in language, we were thinking in a far more abstract and kind of like
possibly
free-flowing way. And now we've got that structure of language, which has kind of become the structure of civilization.
Yep.
Yes.
So when we kind of forget about language and maybe are able to communicate with thoughts and feelings.
So Musk wants to take the phone and put it up against the brain manifold so that we eliminate the bottleneck of language, and then we can
take on that structure of language, and that's where creativity comes through.
So there's a language, there's a thought of ideation and of pictures.
Yeah.
Which
once again it comes down.
It's a really good experiment actually for everyone to do at home. If you can close your eyes and if you can visualize things, if you can create pictures on the back of your eyes, then you're a more creative person. And children are really good at this, but a lot of adults can't even can't picture anything.
Yeah. Well, that's because what we're taught to do is structure the world around us and our reality through the language that we speak.
Yeah.
It's an understandable concept, and it basically allows us to be lazy, because what it does is it means that we don't have to express whatever we feel in a way that's actually what we feel. We just have to do it in the minutiae of what I need to tell you.
We're constantly parroting other people's ideas that we've heard before.
Of course.
Yeah, in a slightly Chinese whispers degraded way.
Yeah.
So there's a really great essay which looks at this, which I really recommend. I'll put it in the show notes. Roland Barthes, when he was a pariah in French academia, and then finally, just towards the end of his life, before he got run over by the laundry truck and died, he was just accepted into the Collège des Arts et Lettres. The top academic accolade in France, and he gave this speech about how, in his understanding of semiotics and of the structure of language, we are programmed by the words that we know.
Exactly.
And his great example, which I think would really interest you, especially thinking about sovereignty, is what he called the dance of the pronouns. So I am you, you are she is he, and they are we. Right. And so the dance of the pronouns is this: I can always imagine being a you to you, and you can always imagine being a me to me.
Yeah.
And then what we achieve with this is we don't identify ourselves by a long string of numbers, by a blockchain address. We have names which we share with other people. We also have pronouns. So I can't in English, I can't express my individuality fully.
Yes.
Because I have to express myself as an I. Which is another person.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I'm expressing myself as I rather than 0256 hash,
but then doesn't that
means that I then have a communicability of my human experience to you through language, but I also can't think outside of a collective.
Well, doesn't that
back
show
to what I think and feel uniquely? You see what I mean?
Doesn't the emergence of the gender fluid nature of things showcase how inadequate language is to describe sexuality, for example, or gender? Because beforehand you had certain pronouns.
Okay.
And now we're moving outside that, because there are some pronouns that just don't work to describe the way certain people feel or the way they feel they are. And what we now have to think is, how do we get around that? And it's very difficult to actually think outside the construct of your reality. It's a very, very difficult thing. So it's
in the same way, English is a non-gendered language grammatically. It
wasn't originally.
It also doesn't have a case grammar.
Yeah.
Or it has any elements of a case grammar, and German and Latin.
Yeah, of course.
More. So there aren't genders of nouns.
There are genders of pronouns
built into the fabric of our language, whereas a lot of European languages do have genders built into. I think that the table is masculine, of course, the chair is feminine, and so on. Yes.
Yeah, but yes, it depends on. So now, once again, it goes back to the a priori knowledge. I think that we've internalized those genders without even knowing it, and that So there's certain things and elements you feel are just generally masculine. You might say they've got masculine energy, even though you don't know why you think that. You don't know what the reasons are, because you haven't been taught it, unless you've learned French or German, so on and so forth. If you just learn English, at no point have you been taught the genders of objects. But there's a feeling, and you can't deny it. You can't deny that some people like more, but then it comes back to that thing of, is it that you understand it intrinsically, or have you been taught that? Have you been taught that blue is male and pink is female?
But I have an example for me. I was talking about this with Philip last night. We were discussing masculine and feminine energy in society, and I have a really good example that kind of catalyzes,
even that concept though
is
not fair
in a really concrete,
what if it's not neither masculine or feminine?
Really concrete example. We're in a garden, and
a big garden.
A family gathering.
Okay.
And there's a tree, and there's a son and a daughter of the family. And the big grandparents are there, uncles and parents and siblings and so on. And a son and a daughter are climbing a tree. And no matter how liberal and progressive the parents and grandparents are, if the daughter falls out of the tree and gets a scar on her forehead, all hell will break loose. Oh, darling, no! Oh, you shouldn't be climbing the tree. Oh, it's so bad. You know, and there'll be tears, and there'll be rending of clothing and hair pulling and so on of the adults who felt that they. Who feel that they
render their clothes. What kind
of
first of all, Lorenzo, what kind of cult is this that we're in now? That's what I want to know.
I exaggerate, but the daughter falls out of the tree, a little 5-year-old, and it's all hell breaks loose. The son falls out of the tree, and dust yourself off. You know,
boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
Good reference experiences. Why is this the case? Why is this the case?
I have a very good answer to that. I have a very good answer to that.
No matter how progressive the parents, no matter what their political
views, I have a very good answer.
Why is there the differential? Okay, I'm interested to hear your answer.
Okay, so now it comes back to the editing of an understanding of gender and history.
Okay.
We are led to believe that things have always been a certain way, and the difference between the sexes has always been a certain way because of history and the way that we think they are. Even the way that
women make babies.
Yeah. However, that's not true. It's a fallacy. The only reason that we don't the only reason that we think it's not a fallacy is because in the recent history and the history that we've been taught, and the history that's generally taught and also parroted by films around us, TV, culture, is that men are supposed to be strong because they're supposed to go off and make empire, and women are supposed to stay at home and look after babies. But if you look at other cultures that existed way before that, there were women that fought, there were matriarchal societies, but it didn't fit into the worldview of the Victorians. So what they did was they edited things. So even if you look at Greece or Rome and the way that Egyptology is studied, there are a lot of things that don't fit into the narrative around this specific, and it's to do with things around the the nuclear family and so on and so forth, the makeup of family. They don't fit into that narrative. So what do we do? We just either marginalize them, we don't talk about them, and they're not taught. And what that does is it creates a general level of a priori knowledge that just permeates through reality. And this is not a case that would have been if without globalization, what we're talking about wouldn't have been the same in other countries. But because of the internet, our inherent and our sort of internalized feelings around this has started permeated. Disney's done a great job of this. A massive great job at this, because so now it comes back to that thing of, if you went to, I don't know, let's say you were somewhere in the Caucasus Mountains pre the Bronze Age, and 2 kids were climbing a tree and both fell down, no parents would give a shit. And that's the reality. Even the concept of looking after children was only changed really in the Victorian era, when Dr. Bernardo said, well, to be honest, children should have rights. Before that, we didn't give a shit about children's rights.
Yeah,
they used to work in factories.
In Rome, a father could kill his child until adulthood
if
he displeased
him. So all this,
because he made him so you can unmake him.
So that's my point. So now
you can take your genes out. You can
exactly.
Take your genes back out.
You're made from me, so therefore you are me.
Yes.
Pardon? I'm not saying it's better, but I'm saying that What I'm saying is that the concepts of the reasons why those things happen.
I get your argument. Now let me advance you. Let me advance you an idea. We've been talking briefly about genes, but I think this is really
no. Wait,
really
I want on another more practical point. If the scar on the face is on the boy's face, then it's going to make him a more scary warrior.
Yes.
If the scar on the face is on the girl's face, then she's less likely to get
married. But then,
exactly.
But my point is that. So going back to that though, once again, that only applies if girls aren't supposed to be warriors.
No, Jay. Genetics encode economics, and economics encode people's reality.
I think that you're missing out an amount of editing.
I agree with you. There are bottlenecks in history.
Yeah.
This idea of dumb apes who fart and shit and smash one over the head, and that's the origin of humanity. Yeah. That's not the origin of humanity.
It's nonsense.
We discovered ancient things, and then we brought ourselves up to the level where we could see the pyramids and see these ancient structures, and then learn from their languages and so on. And we didn't.
We're still, to be honest,
nothing.
We're still unable to accept certain inherent truths.
There have been massive bottlenecks in history because the victors can smash the past. They can smash the loser. They can iconoclast you away so that actually your achievements, because
they don't even exist.
They become my achievements, or you can
don't even exist. Don't even exist.
So I accept there are these massive bottlenecks of history, which is one of the things that this blockchain is notion is trying to preserve, like the truth of those
even the concept
moments.
of truth is,
and however,
it's debatable.
Genetics encode economics, encode reality. For me, the reason why there's all hell breaks loose when the girl kid gets a scar on the forehead, but the boy kid doesn't, and it's a reference experience, so he can go out and he can go out and make a name for himself because he's got more courage. It's not some conspiracy about the Victorians and their particular bottleneck created. No, it's what is this? The reason why women don't get killed in war and they get captured is because of the bottleneck of babies. So every fertile woman who's not too ill or too mad or too sad can produce one baby a year during their fertile life.
I love the fact that you're simplifying things so much. So when my point is that I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you on that fact.
Let me just articulate this. So every fertile woman in the years of her fertility, and this has thousands and millions of generations behind it of bioeconomics.
Who says this?
Right, all the way to hysteria.
So who says this?
So who says this? So it's based on the Dawkins selfish gene model.
Okay, so
we have millions of years. We have millions of years of encoding.
You need to look at the structure.
So let me finish.
Go on.
So we have a 50-50. We have a 50-50 split in male-female at birth. That's very odd.
No, actually, what do you mean? There's more women on the face of the planet than the earth.
Yeah, because men die younger.
Maybe. Actually, it's slightly large. There's slightly more women on the face of the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll also find that there's
birth,
even
50-50. Anyway,
even if you look at organisms, there are more females than men. But anyway, let's not go back.
Thereabouts. But a woman can have one kid a year. A fertile woman can have one kid a year. A fertile man can have 1,000 kids a year.
Yeah, of course.
3 a day and still have 65 days off.
Yeah.
So why do you need those? Why do you need 1,000 men and 1,000 women? You don't in your genetic architecture
you don't.
The population.
No.
However, we have at birth a 50-50 split of sex. So what you get is a bioeconomy.
I mean,
what you get is a bioeconomy. Every woman can have one kid a year, but one man can do the job of 1,000. Right? So those 999 men are surplus requirements in the genetic economy. That's why men have to go out and prove themselves, because they each need to justify why they are worthy of having
this is going into a nature versus nurture situation.
Versus a woman who
this is going into a nature versus nurture situation, and there's no way of empirically proving either. Also, what you're doing is you are fundamentally glossing over certain parts. Like saying that every able-bodied woman is like, no, it doesn't matter. Not every woman is able-bodied.
Yes.
So fundamentally, that logic is completely flawed.
If she doesn't have anything in any other impediment, great. I understand there are outliers. There are outliers. Yes. Yeah. But what we're looking at is a bell curve over
outliers
over millions of generations, millions of generations that encode the bioeconomy.
Yes.
And so to look back at the genes is to say, okay, we'll trace a history and we'll look at what the forces are that have encoded the instincts that exist in things like parents about their children.
It's a priori knowledge, And but that
I'm not making any more advanced a claim about what should or shouldn't happen today. I'm just saying, where do these instincts come from?
But
how are they encoded so deeply that even
certain amounts are actually taken from the environment around you. So a lot of that information isn't just the a priori knowledge, it's posteriori knowledge. It's actually, and I mean, this is a big debate in terms of which is what drives the human psyche. Is it the a priori? Is it the fact that
Kantian principles of you must not murder?
Exactly. Is it the case like, with certain dogs, if you show them a snake, dog knows a snake is an enemy.
Yeah.
It's never seen a snake before, but it knows that.
Humans have hard-coded fear of spiders and snakes.
Yeah, so
even people who've never seen spiders and snakes do have a fear.
So that's the thing.
Because they're genetically so different to us, and anything that's so.
No, it's because the same reason that fairy tales are horror stories. Because you want your child not to win a Darwin Award. You want your child not to like cut themselves out of reality with a stupid mistake, like trusting big bad wolves.
Who
are pedophiles.
So then once again it goes back to my thing.
You tell children horrible horror stories and really terrify them with nightmares because you want them to not
go to sleep. The easier way to think about this is
have a Darwin.
What is the most valuable commodity to take? Right?
Children.
Women. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Take a bunch of men there, right?
Of course. But we're moving. There's a lot.
Actually, it's a good point. Elon Musk's Mars lander. What's the sex split in Elon Musk's Mars?
Surely it should be 42.
Lander.
I don't know. It should be 42.
4 women to 2 men.
Yeah.
But then
is that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
If you wanted to save humanity,
yes.
What would you take more of?
Well, let's have a think. How many women are in the
information?
And if there was a zombie apocalypse,
we'd have two kids a year.
Every year.
So we've completely deconstructed what we were discussing, and we've moved so far off topic. But the thing is, you can't by saying that things like, oh yeah, well, a body, so on and so forth. What you're doing is you're actually editing. That's what it is. It's editing. So if you go back to the whole Victorian thing again,
you're right. It's a dangerous road.
Exactly, it's a dangerous road to go down because that's not the actual information. The actual information is there were this amount of people, and these amount survived, and these amount were able to so on and so forth. So it doesn't matter how many able-bodied are, men can do this or whatever. The fact is that in certain societies beforehand, women used to have scars on their face, and it was found attractive. But because we understand what we have been told, and when I say what we have been told, that's information that we've assimilated without even knowing that we've assimilated it. We are walking, talking record boxes. We are like black boxes. So everything, even things that we're talking about right now, is being ingrained into my psyche. So there are things that I will do as a result of that without knowing that that's what I'm doing.
So we come back to why the prediction market is so dangerous. If you have a quantum prediction market,
you can test
ultimately just let people live your own. Some little geek in
predictions exactly, and then it becomes
so digital sovereignty over your own destiny.
Exactly. So that's where you come down to the whole point of view of let me give you a scenario, right? I am a big bad digital state. I'm not going to just call it digital state A.
Yeah.
And I make I've got loads of wealth.
I'm visualizing you as Mark Zuckerberg right now. It's like
let's not label it because obviously there's some obvious parallels, but let's not talk about it. Digital state A. I am a sovereign nation, and I also have a lot of digital prowess. I have a whole bunch of hackers.
Yeah.
I also have a massive army.
Yeah.
And I have a big digital and state identity that runs through my whole populace.
Yeah.
I'm not. Let's not.
And there's no internal dissent.
Yeah. Let's call it state A.
There's no viable internal.
Quantum
computer state. Yeah. State A, and state A is like we're at a point where we either have to continue growing, or we will become an Ouroboros, which is a snake eating its own tail. We will have to cannibalize. Yes.
Yeah.
So we have to grow. What's this? State B. State B is a small state, blah, blah. We don't even need to be hostile.
Yeah.
we could buy some of the state's massive companies. So let's buy that state B's, I don't know, electricity company.
Yeah.
And then we buy state B's, I don't know, network of supermarkets. And then we buy state B's, I don't know, mining facilities.
Okay.
And in state B, we start creating a way of.
Hey, how are you? Martin Skinner's in the house.
So state B, I'm state A, and I now control all of those things in state B.
Yes. And you have the 48 Club.
Wait.
In state B Hill.
Wait.
To attract the state B.
Let's not even get that far.
Elite.
We don't even need to go that far. So state B has a whole bunch
of the 48 Club people.
State B has a.
This is the modern day Picasso.
Hello, sir.
Daniel Larson.
Pleasure. Come on the show, man. The New
Tuesday,
Athens. You're live on stream now on YouTube. Hey, Martin, how are you?
I'm back to Jay.
Say hello.
Say hello to you're on the YouTube live now. Daniel Larson, everyone. Apparently, we'll be hearing from him soon. He'll be on
London on Tuesday.
Give us loads of thumbs up, and Daniel will fly in.
Daniel Larson, everyone. Daniel Larson. Shout out. He'll be here soon. Catch you in a bit, man.
As if Boris lets him in the country, obviously. Well,
Boris is coming in anyway.
So
Back to Jay.
yeah, so state B, right? You've got state A is now controlling some of the assets in state B.
Yeah, bought out the infrastructure. And also as part of that, it's also bought the social networks in state B. Yeah.
And it's now bringing up the digital capacity of state B to a point that it has created a whole network on state B where people are starting to live their lives online. But because it controls all those assets, it can now decide what to do with the digital rights and the digital actual lives of state B's people.
Yeah.
At that point, state B doesn't have its own, it doesn't even have the wherewithals or the capacity to combat that.
No.
And at that point, state B has lost its digital
become a
sovereignty.
satellite.
Yeah, that's all it has.
Yeah.
And state A can continue doing that to other states. And the only people that can counteract state A is state U. Once again, you can draw from that what you will. State U, and that is a really big state as well. So state U is like, oh my God, state A has become digitally sort of aware. So we now need to start thinking of ways that we can combat that. So state U puts all its money and power into combating state A. It doesn't care about state B, state C, all those other guys. It's about state A. That's the big enemy. So those two have this kind of, it's basically like a nuclear arms race. Arm. Exactly. So whoever's
got a Cold War, but a gold war.
Whoever's got the most cobalt, gold, iridium, all that sort of stuff, builds up more stuff, builds up more computing. And those are the only people that have sovereignty. But at that point, you've got computing power and technology that could, I mean, let's say you and I, we're living our lives, doing normal things.
Piracy, banditry.
Yeah, exactly. And then we got caught by the government. They could turn our lives around in a split second.
Yes.
And
Deperson us.
We wouldn't exist.
We have a man in the building who was depersoned last year.
Oh, there you go. We would have no sovereignty.
On that note, we've got a lot of love on socials from Jessica King, Polygon, Jay Tompkins, Blazer71.
Oh, fantastic.
Boyd. Polygon.
Oh, we've got a whole chat going on in the
linguistics. Linguistic minimalization is very real. The average newspaper only uses 650 words.
Facts.
Public education also drives out curiosity and rewards regurgitation. We end up with large numbers of people that have had creativity and curiosity driven out of them as useless thinking.
Yeah.
Words cut realities down. She keeps on, and she or he says, hit that thumbs up. This is quality material. Jay Thompson says, hit the thumbs up. Blazer says, I really like the way this was going, but I can't understand what has been said now. But the drama's really bad. I can't understand what Blazer's saying.
State A is China. State B is Britain.
I did not say.
U is the United States.
I did not say that at all in any way whatsoever.
That's just my interpretation.
That's his interpretation.
Interesting theory from the guest. What's his name. His name is Jay Tronica. You can catch him on
At
Instagram.
Jay Tronica.
Jay Tronica with a
No,
K.
at Jay Tronic Graham.
Oh, sorry.
Tronic.
At Jay Tronic.
Is that with a
Graham.
With a K.
With
Jay
a K. I'm
Graham.
going to type that in now.
Yeah, I've got it
And,
on. So
So I think we should maybe do a little.
Polygon asks, what are your thoughts on data chains? Safe network made, for example. They are approaching beta. This is the first ICO and was called Impossible Network. The impossible is looking quite possible. Not sure what safe network made is, but we can look it up.
We can look it up. Let's
look it up now. Christopher, if you press number 4, I believe. I think this is 4.
Wilfred, can the girl pronounce my surname? Arasaratan Nam.
So made safe.
Nam. Wilfred Arasaratan.
Is this something? Is this a reference to? Is this a reference to Mr. Robot? There was a company in Mr. Robot called Made Safe, but I think maybe it was MADE. I don't know. Is this about Scottish lasses? It's called MAIDSAFE. So it's like Scottish.
I see what
lasses.
they've done there.
It's like a marriage network. It's a marriage blockchain to export the beauty of Scotland to the world, perhaps. So safe network. We will do so. We will do what? Something about maids. We'll do so. We're building Safe Network, the world's first autonomous and centralized data network. Be part of creating this, or creating, as Nick Clegg would say, this new internet for the people, by the people.
I mean, so
okay, what is that?
So that, but I understand what they're trying to do.
People can do self-sovereignty.
I understand what they're trying to do, but then it comes down to that thing of, like, before the internet existed, right?
Yes.
There's no way you could have thought about how you would predict what the internet was going to do, because you couldn't conceive the internet itself. So in this situation, with us trying to battle with these, our tiny little brains here going, oh no,
think tank,
digital state, let's try and work it out. Like, the fact is, this next stage, I mean, people talk about the Internet of Things, right? And if we really become connected to, and I subscribe to the theory that we already really are connected to computers. Like, the internet is a living, breathing organism that has us connected to it. Yes, the connection itself has a really slow bit rate.
Yeah,
our exchange of data
through our
thumbs
and
our mouths and our brains, in terms of the way that we interpret data.
Culture as a biological entity has found an electronic way to transmit itself around the world. I mean, how clever is it?
Well, I mean, that's if you believe that it wasn't already doing that through the morphic field, but we won't go into that right now.
Interesting.
Gaia theory.
The fact is that what we've done is we've actualized what probably was already existing. So if you think about it, think about the morphic field as a concept. Isn't the morphic field just a very advanced internet?
Yeah.
Because the morphic field is supposed to be this field that connects everything through electromagnetic energy. Yeah, what is the internet? What is the internet?
Yeah.
The internet is a connection of computers. What is connecting them? What is the energy that's going between each computer? It's electricity. It's electromagnetic. So fundamentally, the internet is a morphic. It's like
you can show the audience what morphic fields are. So there's a global morphic field. Then you can see a morphic field.
So and
then we have
so then I mean, so the logical progression of that is, if we are allowed to get, or if we are able to get this Neuralink working,
this is
and then we're able to connect our. So it goes back to this whole thing of
back to the us now.
If it goes back to the whole thing of where people have said, everything that has happened will happen and is always happening, and it's happening. If you believe in string theory, parallel universe, multiverse theory, and then you're like, is there a specific direction of travel? And so all these things inevitable because
plague. If producer has plague.
Sorry, Carlin.
If the what's it called again? If humans as a race, well, we'll even go into we'll unpack that word as well. Have one reason of existing. Wouldn't it be to advance the human race itself? Is that so? You've got to think about it.
Well,
if there's one reason for
gene says that it's actually the genetic code inside the cell that is the individual.
Exactly.
And we are just machines.
We're a delivery system. We're a delivery system.
Delivery system of cells.
So
that the genes can give themselves a vehicle through.
So it goes through the whole.
They're the units of information that are copied with high fidelity and hence have a long life, a long term.
So now you come down to information.
Where is the information?
Where's the information stored? Yeah. So now. So and this, I'll come full circle back to digital sovereignty. So if you look at a cell has two functions. Its function is either immortality, or its function is to reproduce. Yeah, that's it. It can either do one of those things. So,
but so if you look at the selfish gene theory, though, what Dawkins is saying is that the genetic code is not. On the death of the individual, if the genetic code has transmitted, if you're my son and I've transmitted my genetic code into you, the gene isn't dying and pressing Control-Alt-Delete and then resetting itself into you. The same gene is still alive. So the life of the gene exists longitudinally between generations. So that's why the genes have this ability to copy themselves to high fidelity. It's not because they're copying their children; they are extending their own lifespan.
Immortality through.
So they're immortal through the copying mechanism.
So remember, cell theory.
Yeah.
Right. You've got cell A. Cell A has to become immortal.
Is cell A part of?
No. It's got nothing to do with nation. It's nation A and state A have nothing to do with cell A. It just so happens that. The alphanumeric, exactly.
Sponsored by Digital State A.
Exactly. It just so happens that A and the Latin and Cyrillic alphabet that we're using.
We don't have any other options.
I mean, we could call it cell alpha, or.
Speaking of, we have an interesting experiment tonight with MindLab Pro.
Okay.
If you're interested in MindLab Pro,
what is MindLab Pro?
It's a natural claims to be a universal nootropic dietary supplement.
Oh, it's nootropic.
It's like a modafinil, but from herbs.
You want to hold that out to the camera? Show the label.
Yeah. So we've just been experimenting with this tonight in the bunker, looking at different kinds of nootropics. We're going to be releasing some of our own soon. So we're playing around with MindLab Pro. There we go.
It's be interesting. We should there's a lady that we were introduced to this morning who's a neuroscientist.
Yes.
We should get her thoughts on nootropics. I don't know what it is. Tell me about it. Give me, what is it going to do? Am I going to turn into Brainiac?
Christabel took one earlier. She seems to be full of beans.
Is it one of those things that,
it contains vitamin B6.
Stop eating beans then.
Vitamin B9, vitamin B12.
I've had a lot of, is that vodka?
Yes.
Now I will have one of those.
Okay, great.
I mean, not the whole thing.
Martin Skinner, everyone. Come in the shop. Hey,
if I have
favourite guest.
It's lovely to meet Martin.
Get out.
He brought the vodka.
Now.
Come on, let him live.
We also need a glass.
9 more bottles and you'll be ready. Go on, out.
Where were we? Sell out.
Other brands of vodka are available.
Yes. Pass that beer, Danny.
Which one?
We've been distracted again.
Yeah.
So with the purpose of cells.
Yeah. Cell alpha.
Same again with the DNA and RNA structures inside those cells.
Yeah.
So that you have two. The cell wants to live forever. That's what it has.
You think it's the cell, not the genetic?
Well, I mean,
there is an entity.
There's an entity that has to exist
somewhere in that.
Immortality is the goal.
Yeah.
It can either live forever. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Caroline. My fiance there just supplying us with the.
Would you like some lemonade for your vodka?
I've got Sprite.
This is. I've
got Sprite. Let's do what I can. And by the way, I don't endorse. What's it called again? Drinking to excess. Drinking should always be done in moderation.
Mos maiorum. Yeah, moderation in all things.
Moderation in everything,
including moderation
itself.
Yes. So extremity in moderation.
So the cell can achieve
moderate extremism, everyone.
The cell can achieve that in two ways. The cell can either live forever, literally. There's a whole thing about telomeres and being able to continually exist through not dying.
Yeah.
or the cell can replicate.
Yeah.
So it can copy itself.
Yeah.
Or split into two.
Yeah.
And then the original cell dies, but the second one lives on.
Yeah.
We are copying machines.
Yes. So it goes down to the point, is that what's the point? Like you have to come back to that actual question. What is our function? I'm not talking about our place in, the cosmos and all that sort of stuff. What is the biological function of a human being? And
so we are now at a fork in the road in that infrastructure, because we're looking at life extension therapies. We're looking at cryonic freezing. We're looking at telomere therapies. We're looking at genetic therapies. We're looking at more calibrated medicine.
Oh, it's vanilla flavored. Okay,
very nice.
I'm not supposed to be drinking. I stopped drinking, but whatever.
Presented by Somewhat Vodka.
Some vodka.
Somewhat vodka.
Some vodka.
So
you drink vanilla flavored. This now.
I've already. Well, transfer into with ice. Perfect.
I need some of that. No, I've just had to go to war with the kitchen to get that.
There you go. I've had one.
A bit of vodka as well.
Yeah, go on, pass that.
Oh, God.
What is that? Is that a
That's supposed to make me happy.
Is that a custard tart?
Are you a custard tart? 50 years tramp.
I'm not going to go into the last conversation.
Is that a Portuguese?
Thank you very much.
You don't want it?
Yeah, of course I don't want it.
Tart Natale.
What is it?
I'm not going to say anything else.
Is it a custard
They're
tart?
really fucking nice.
Can I have
Is it Portuguese?
You're lucky I got no scars on my face.
Huh?
Exactly.
Nata?
The whole thing, or do you
A
want
nata lata?
What?
Is it Donata?
Do you want this?
No, you eat
Okay.
it.
Thanks, Martin.
Is it the nata?
Donata, that's what I said.
That is quite nice, but I don't want
Mother's milk.
They're really tasty.
Nata. Nata
Let's
is
get
mother's
close
milk.
up there. Oh, yeah.
I mean, my mother really likes them. That's all I know.
It's mother's milk to the mother. Yeah.
But that's not where I got it from.
From my mother? No, okay, fine. I'd found that weird. She'd have told me. She'd be like, I've given this custard tart to a guy. Bit of random, but whatever.
I tried
Jailbird.
to give it to a girl, so I tried. But
Get out! Get out!
I want my fucking vodka. Thank you.
Other vodkas are available.
Out.
Telomeres.
Be gone.
Yeah, telomeres are
So
available.
we're at that same crossroads of the genes, because we can reproduce, or we can try and extend our own lives.
But
so we can use life extension therapies. We can eventually Neuralink upload our consciousness into the cloud.
that's the point, man. That's where I think that any kind of progress is really going to be made, because we have to agree on what we believe consciousness and life is.
Yeah.
And if we are able to get to a point where we can decode and technically replicate someone's actual consciousness,
The stream of consciousness spooled
Digitally.
out.
I've got some thoughts from Polygon again.
Oh, great.
They say
Hey,
the human
Polygon.
race is here to advance itself.
Exactly.
Our form and function point towards this. We can walk further than any beast on the planet. We were made for information. We are the physical body of the morphic fields. Life works to overcome entropy. I do like that. It's very kind of like conflict, but yeah. Life works to overcome
Exactly.
entropy.
So
But-
my great enemy is entropy. I think that the great enemy of life is death itself.
So I disagree.
We should try to conquer entropy. That's my life
I think that's
goal.
hubris.
You think?
I think entropy is the natural state of things.
Do you want to die? If you were given,
I don't know. It's not about whether I want to or
If you
not.
could get a life extension therapy that could let you live 1,000 years,
Hubris.
would you choose not to indulge in it because you think it's somehow wrong?
It's not about right. Once
Let's say
again,
it's there.
the
it's affordable.
concept of right or wrong is something that we've created.
Program about this on Amazon Prime called, I think it's called Upload.
Other platforms are also available.
It's about basically people, if they're rich enough, they have a choice when they die to be uploaded
Into the cloud.
Which is Buddhism, which is Antiquitech. So one of the things,
And they will then just be part of the morphic internet field.
yes, the Nirvana.
But my thing about that is that look, if you look at chaos theory and all these kind of things, entropy is the natural state of things. Disorder is order.
But
Disorder is order, and what is happening and what time is the passing of organized things into an unorganized mess. That is time. So,
but
if you look at
but for the human will, and but for the will of the genes.
I mean, yes, you can say that, but
we can
eventually there will be no more
energy of the light.
There will be no more energy to power it.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, we could. Okay, yeah. So the long-term future is
the heat death of the universe. Will just be.
Yeah.
I mean, if we believe once again, this is a theory. It's a theory.
Yeah, but this is a theory that's been fed to us so that we're nihilistic, and we have this evacuation. That sounds like conspiracy theories.
We
have this You were talking about the way we've been programmed to have sex theories.
But my point is that it's not. I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think it's. I agree with you, but I don't think it's on purpose. I think that it's like
as Cummings would say, like what you just did was you falsified your own idea about the program because that doesn't sound like good. That sounds like it's just a conspiracy theory. But I was
joshing you.
Yeah, it's all a program, people.
The reality
You're all being programmed.
So, but the point is that you have to decide of whether that's the system in essence programming you by defending itself, or there is a Big Brother 1984 style.
Yeah.
Going. So I want. Or what's it called again in the Matrix? The Architect.
Yeah.
Because they're going,
was that in the later Matrix films, which nobody really liked?
Matrix.
Oh, it was like it was featured in the start and
the Matrix 2.
Sisters.
Yeah, but they were brothers at the time of the making of the Matrix.
Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. So the fact is that there is an element of determinism in its own self that is happening through that. And so if you accept that, then it's like, who has agency over it?
Okay, but then you're basing your actions in your life, which is 60 years of adult life, pretty much max, until we get life extension therapy going. Like
some people
20 to 80, is your max capacity for active life. Until it's commercially viable, whatever. So okay, Steve Jobs is Siri. By the way, Steve Jobs is Siri. He's just listening. He uploaded. He was the first one to upload himself.
Okay, is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is sounding very much like Deus, but
So,
did anyone watch that series?
Not yet.
You should see it.
I've not.
It's really good. Caroline thought it was a bit crazy.
I've not had time for I've not had any time for fiction recently.
You really? Well, this is another thing. Is fiction. Is fiction just prescient facts?
Of course.
Well, it depends who funds it. If it's Netflix.
So it's
likely to be part of a social engineering program.
This is another thing. It's another thing where you say, right, do we invent things because they need to be invented, or because someone has thought about it somewhere and therefore we try to invent it? So there's a lot of, I suppose, narrative that Elon Musk seems to be following that seems to match up with a lot of fiction.
What 60s sci-fi Ray Bradbury kind of
and Marvel period. And Iron Man and all this sort of stuff. I mean, even if you look
all of this is if you look at
sci-fi as a genre.
If you look at DARPA, DARPA had the patents for the smartphone touchscreens in the 50s, and they developed them by the 60s. So that then only comes out into a commercial architecture only much later when that's been fully road tested. They didn't road test the internet, and they let them out too early, and that was how we gained the jump on this stage of the rollout of the command and control system, because they didn't realize quite how the internet was going to be this anarchic free marketplace.
But that's because they couldn't conceptualize it. They couldn't conceptualize it. How could they? How can you?
They realized how quickly everybody.
It's the thing of it's that thing of, once again, probably because they didn't read a lot of fiction either. So if anyone had read any fiction or science fiction, they'd have been like
Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah. Anyone who read that, they'd have been like, right, look, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. And when you think about what people like McLuhan said in terms of the theory, it's the actual medium itself is the message.
Massage.
Well, that's true. And
I think that it was meant to be like a typo in the publisher that then he turned into the preface, but it was very good.
So when you actually look at these things, you've got to accept that it's either one or the other. It's not. We can't be living in this quasi sort of state of, are we really being controlled, or is there someone behind it, or it's either there is control and that we are living in a simulation.
The agent is less important than how you act.
Yes.
What I was saying earlier was, you sounded like you were saying that you might act a different way because you thought there's going to be a heat death of the universe in billions of years' time.
No, I would, because like, biological imperative will overrun that. So it goes back. The genes are way stronger than I am because my conscious brain is hardly anything.
You'll jump into the river to save your child, even when your child's going to drown.
Yeah, of course.
And all you'd be doing is drowning,
just killing yourself. Exactly. So there are certain things where
actually with a cooler head you'd say, okay, I can have 10 more kids.
Of course, but you love your child.
Yeah, exactly. So your brain is reverse engineering you and your own consciousness to give you the outputs that the genes prefer.
Yes, but the thing is, though, we all, once again, this is all hubris, because we are still very tied up in our own existence and the fact that now we can
a new reality.
Yes, now that we exist in this reality, we are becoming aware of things outside of us. A perfect example is the link to a certain organism, which Caroline loves. We're talking about this. That exists in cat guts.
And toxoplasmosis.
Yes.
One of Joe Rogan and Alex Jones's favorite topics, which is why Brazilian football teams are so much better than
having a new Athens topic.
It also accounts for something like 90 or something % of all motorcycle accidents in America.
So the idea is that
that's a crazy state.
That if you eat cat piss, then if you come into contact with cats, if you come into contact with cat dander, then it's likely that will be transferred into your brain a worm that eats into your brain
and makes you more
courageous and higher risk, risk factor. You accept higher risk. Yeah, of course, that's
got nothing
and
to
often
do with
they converge.
I don't think. Cocaine and cats.
Yeah. No, cocaine and toxoplasmosis, because the toxoplasmosis makes you more likely to take cocaine.
So this is the thing. It's like we are still.
Brazilian football teams are better football teams because they all have toxoplasmosis endemic in Brazil, which makes them it's in the environment. And so then it gets into the population, and the bell curve is that much taller when it comes to risk risk-taking activity, and so they get much better at.
So this now goes back to that thing of who has agency, right? So the
cat worm has agency.
Exactly. At that point, you're not controlling yourself.
Yeah.
I'm like, meow, should I get a motorcycle? But in reality, the cat worm is saying you should get a motorcycle. Yeah, you should.
You go for
because
it, man.
You go
Meow.
for it. Because
Meow.
what that worm is really trying to do is to make you, because it doesn't understand humans. What it's trying to do is to get mice to run towards cats.
Yes.
That's what it's actually trying to do.
Yeah.
But it's in a human.
What?
Yes, because it can only reproduce inside cats' guts.
Yes, so it makes cat ladies. So cat ladies have toxoplasmosis. They're attracted to the cat piss.
We've got free will, but we're actually just trying to chase after rats.
No. So we're
cats,
so what the toxoplasmosis does in mice and
cats,
rats,
not rats. Yeah, cats.
What the toxoplasmosis
does
cats. So the toxoplasmosis goes from cats into mice and rats, and they go to mice and rat brains. Makes them attracted to cat piss. So they drink. So the mice and rats drink the cat piss. The cat pisses, and then it eats the mice and rats.
I heard that it made them really aggressively horny towards cats.
Yeah,
and so they run towards the cats.
All of the mechanisms.
And so the cat's like, great, I'm going to eat this mice.
So cat ladies, why they get like 20, 30, 40 cats? Is because they get really turned on
oh my God, that's
by the cat piss themselves. So it does the same. Funnily enough, mice and humans have very close links in terms of genetics. That's why they have humanized mice in labs, which is
there's
a
big thing about the telomeres in mice.
Yeah.
In lab mice. Oh my gosh.
Brett Weinstein.
Yes.
I need to still see Brett Weinstein's digest of this.
How human beings either look like a piggy or a rat?
Okay, which
so everybody either looks more like a piggy or a rat.
I mean, I was born in the year of the pig, so well.
I was born in the year of the rabbit.
83?
I'm a mouse. Like, so
I'm a rabbit.
High five
Are
to
you
that.
87? Ah, I'm a rabbit. We're
everybody
rabbits.
either looks more like a pig or a mouse.
Okay.
Some
I get more
people,
like
some
a pig.
people. I'm going to say something that might sound racist, so I'm going to preface it with that statement. Some people look like monkeys.
Not to be offensive, but or,
Yeah. Some people look like monkeys.
No disrespect, but yeah.
I'm not talking about the color of their skin. I'm talking about the facial features, and also if you look at, I suppose, apes and
human ape hybrids.
Yes.
In China, the trichomes have human ape chimera hybrids.
Cro-Magnon. There's a phrase called
Oh God, Cro-Magnon man.
Yeah.
What?
And if you,
Are we going to go into this? We are now going. I mean, I'm happy to delve into
Go
this.
down the wormhole.
If we're going to go down
Let's
there,
go down the
then we
wormhole.
might as well go all the way. But I've got people that might be watching this that might get really weirded out by this.
This is a free speech. This is a First Amendment proof free speech zone. So fire away, Jim.
I mean, and I haven't even got onto this whole thing. We haven't even gone there yet. So
I don't know what the implications of Cro-Magnon as a word means, but I understand that it's like a lump of a big forehead, big eyebrow bones.
Oh, ridge, the
right?
brow ridge.
A friend of mine
Yes.
has got really big eyebrow bones, and he looks just like the Cro-Magnon.
I mean, there's a whole thing about
He is a
Neanderthal
missing
DNA also existing
in
in
European.
Europeans,
Is
especially.
Cro-Magnon a Neanderthal?
Well,
no.
so yeah, especially the people that are descended from red-headed Vikings. But
Chris, just
let's-
jumping down and go take a bathroom break. I'm back in a minute.
yeah, we just like to say that there are other clubs available than Tramp.
Yes, 50 years of tramp. It's like
50 years of
so that means
picking
you're
up
the
girls.
lady.
Tramp, no. I mean, that's all I can say is I've been to Tramp, and I've also never seen the bar.
I have
don't
no
know where it
need
is.
to go to the bar.
I have no idea where the bar
People
is
buy
in
me
Tramp.
drinks. Why would I go to
And
the bar?
It's warm.
I mean-
there, it's warm, but no one's sweating.
Yeah.
I've never sweated in Tramp myself,
Yeah.
but I generally stand upstairs in the smoking area, which is quite cool. So I avoid the sweats.
That'll be why.
And also, there's no bar there, so I've never seen the bar either.
I've never seen the bar. I've just seen plates of alcohol being brought to me.
Plates of alcohol.
Sorry.
I don't even understand what you're doing there. If plates of alcohol, are they made of alcohol, or is there alcohol on the plates?
Yeah.
You sip it like a cat.
I don't mean plates. I mean, what's it called?
Jesus.
You know, that's
Tray.
serving.
Trays.
Trays.
Trays
Plates
with alcohol on them.
binders of women. Lorenzo is taking a quick loo break. He will be back shortly, as I'm sure we can't wait. So yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen each other.
It has been a while. It has been a while. I can't remember the last time we saw each other.
I can't remember.
There's been a lot that's happened. We have, in fact, I'll use this point to make a quick plug.
Yeah, please do.
So the collective that I've been involved in, Mirror Shot, we've had our first album out,
Amazing.
which has been great.
At Miro Short Official on Instagram.
Yes, at Mirror Shot Official, and also mirrorshot.com if you want to go to the website. And also check us out on YouTube. We've got a few videos out. In fact, we have a single out right now that was played on radio. It's called. Ooh, I'm really terrible at this.
We can play it.
I spelled at Mirror Shot. At Mirror Shot.
MIROSHOT.
That's correct. I feel terrible now because I can't find this. Hold on.
We can definitely play the track for everybody out there. I'm sure everyone's super interested.
Yeah, I mean, no more. We've got a track called No More, No Less. That's out right now on Believe All Points Music, and it was played on Radio 6, I think, with Jack Saunders.
Fabulous.
No, Radio 1 actually. Radio 1.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, day before yesterday. We've had a really good response to the album, but it's kind of a weird situation to be in because launching an album during a pandemic is not the most effective way to promote music.
For any promotion of any kind.
However,
it's not
talking about
happening
trailblazing, I mean, Mirror Shot are the first. We are the first, world's first multi-sensory AR, VR, XR band.
Now let's walk the audience through what this means, because I mean, you actually have these kind of sensory clouds where you can smell and taste different things.
when we first came up with the concept and Roman, I don't know if he's listening, had this concept of creating something that was art, but on many forms, and also being a multi-sensory collective and using all forms of media possible to, I suppose, to perform. And the idea is that, I mean, we do these mixed reality shows where the crowd is actually in VR, and they're in a sort of round around the band itself. The band performs, but the audience are taken through VR and AR. So sometimes they're in the room, sometimes they're not. They're in a virtual space, but it's also a multi-sensory experience. So you've got scent, you've also got heat, and you know, and all those kind of things, light, and that affects the way that you experience the actual show itself.
And this is something, these kind of like crazy, you know, immersive experiences is something that people have been really wanting recently. I mean, it started kind of like with secret cinema, and then we got all these kind of like other things that, so not secret cinema, but
secret cinema is immersive.
Kind of,
I mean,
companies that have been doing this. But now with the whole live experience, you know, it's going to be vastly different. This is kind of where you guys can step in and kind of do something that's more individualized.
We already kind of have. Yeah. I mean, a few days ago we did a live closing party for Cannes Film Festival.
Amazing.
And we are actually starting our virtual reality world tour due to the fact that we can't do a physical world tour right now. So that's going to be in Science Space. You can, if you go onto mirrorshot.com, you can find out more about that. Or you can go onto, I think we're selling tickets in, I say selling, some of them are free, in Eventbrite, I think. Yeah, Eventbrite. And the fact is that this is exactly the sort of time that Mirrorshot was set up for. It's just sad that we can't do physical gigs because we're set up perfectly to do social distant gigs.
Yeah, that's what I'm
saying.
But
we're set up
surely it's not long in the running now.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not. I think that it's more a case of everybody else catching up to us, rather than, you know, the situation.
But you're the first of the field. You set the precedent, and I mean, you, as you say, you're the trailblazers here.
Well, yeah, you know, there's other people out there that are doing similar things. I think it's more a case of being able to express what the collective is in a way that promotes, I suppose, being connected and also diversity, because that's a hot topic right now.
And speaking of diversity, I think you have launched a new TV program, or you're involved in a TV program and podcast.
I can't talk about that right now.
Oh, okay.
That's something we can't talk about. We can't talk about those things. And I mean, technically, what Lorenzo was talking about in terms of the manifesto also wasn't supposed to be talked about. So that's
not exclusive.
That's something that's been worked on.
We have a very exclusive viewership here.
Yeah, that's fine. It's something that is going to be released anonymously. So we will, but of course, you guys will be kept abreast of the development of that.
Yeah.
I think that it's a key time for us to start addressing some of these issues, and in fact, I would like to talk about that more now.
Yeah, great.
If possible, and actually look at what the constructions are. So I mean, if we look at all these inequities that we have in society at the moment, and where things are going, it's now really the responsibility of us who are. I don't know what's
because we're just working out which camera.
No, sorry. I was just trying to edge out of your shot because I could just see my shoulder, and I was just.
But I'm just not really sure about this tiger print thing. Is this like Joe?
Tiger King.
This is Oliver's.
It's £1 a meter from Amazon. So I've got 30 meters of it, and I've got
swags.
I got it years ago, and
I'm just saying that, you know, the certain work brigade would have been like, you've got tigers and zebras out. It's a black guy on the fucking program.
Well, we've been here before.
Just saying, you might get cancelled in cancel culture, and then
cancel culture. Think about cancel
culture. We're going to unpack that. We're going to unpack that later.
Yeah. So political correctness we were discussing earlier. The granularity of language is one word to one concept.
Yeah.
And if you say there are concepts which should not be expressed, then you're deleting opportunities for expression. So, but sure, to my mind, and as far as I can see, with that granularity of language, you want to know when people want to be offensive.
Well, I mean,
you want to know when people want to say, "I don't like
the
you."
fact
is that
I want
to express myself in a way.
You've got to accept one of two things. You're either someone that wants change, or you're someone that doesn't want to think about it. If you want change, you have to discuss concepts.
Yeah.
You can't lock yourself away and be like, oh, well, it doesn't exist. Because it does exist. People still think those things. Just because they can't say them doesn't mean they don't think them.
Exactly. And so do you want to know when someone wants to offend you? Like, do you want them to be able to express to the fullest extent? I genuinely don't care
personally myself.
Like, but you get a read. You get a read. You get a read.
There's nothing
from the
worse
kinds
than
of
a
language
passive-aggressive insult that you don't know whether it's a compliment or if it's a put down.
You know, I think you should just take it as a compliment anyway, regardless.
Christopher doesn't like being negged. It doesn't compute with.
Who does like being?
But I mean, but then there's the whole.
Though.
I mean, the problem you have with the whole cancel culture thing, and to be honest, calling it cancel culture is a misnomer.
Yeah.
Because it's cancel mainstream.
Because it's
actually
not
cancel mainstream money.
Once again,
because
it's that whole thing
on Infowars, you know, and you've got you can have bullhorns for.
There are still people that are called. What are they called? The opposite of not Karens. Incels. That's it.
Yes.
So you can go on Infowars.com, which is an architecture of distribution of media outside of the mainstream. Alex Jones has built it up in Austin, Texas. It's syndicated on radio shows throughout America.
Of course, it's in Austin, Texas.
And so he's. Oh, there we go.
I was about to.
Prop for Christopher.
What am I supposed to do?
Bullhorn. It's the bullhorn. So this is the
bullhorns are available.
Yeah. So.
Oh, the scales are tipping slightly in Jay's favor.
So Infowars.com is what Alex Jones built in advance of getting cancelled. Was he created this streaming service with his own servers, with his own broadcast architecture, syndicated on radio shows across America,
which is great.
Which
until
allowed
some big country buys those servers.
Once big tech. Once big that he got his own. He's gone off Cloudflare. He's gone to
where
his
is
own.
he?
I don't. He's got his own.
Even if he's in Iceland, someone
away.
could still buy him eventually.
Yeah,
anyway,
Whether or not it's unbuyable is a different matter.
The issue you have to look at is what's happened to Kim.com.
Okay.
If you look at what's happened to Kim.com, it shows that if a state gets big enough and serious enough about shutting you down, it doesn't matter what you want to do. Genuinely doesn't.
But he's out. He's out of jail and he's doing his own thing.
But what was he? Was he just?
What do you mean? What do you mean he's doing his own thing? Like they completely. His assets still haven't been released.
He can make more assets. Like he's a man. He's a very capable guy.
Sorry,
he is a capable guy.
About? Can you set the stage?
Kim.com is a New Zealander who created Mega Upload.
There you go.
And
yes, of course,
allowed people to stream movies in the same way that Napster.
No, it wasn't a thing.
Okay.
First of all, he did not steal anything, and he did not.
He created a platform to allow people to upload.
How did he make his money then?
He
advertising and
I think there was a previous.
So, but he did not.
He did not. Other people to third parties.
He did not personally take that stuff and sell it to you. He didn't sell you the films at all.
So he was running.
He had no product. It was just a server.
Pirate trading system.
It wasn't a pirate. Once again,
piracy.
A pirate trading system.
He created some infrastructure which people started using to upload
things. So a pirate trading. Hold on, wait.
Stolen stuff.
No.
Only if you agree with the
Mega Upload was back in the day with pirate.
Hold on, wait.
What's the point in doing anything without?
Okay, so now it goes back. Now we're gonna go back to a fundamental flaw. A fundamental flaw that we have.
Ring-fencing of data. Yeah. Okay. IP is important.
Oh yeah, not when it comes to art.
This is subsidised by the state. This studio, this wouldn't be happening unless the state HS2 fucking.
Well, don't tell them that.
but it's like this doesn't exist without someone paying for it.
Can you hear the?
Yes and no. So let me tell you my theory. Right.
Minotaur. I'm communicating with the.
What is art? What is art? Let's unpack this.
Made by man.
So what's the function of art?
To reflect the current times and enlighten.
No, not necessarily. Right.
Hold on, wait.
Anything. It could be any. 360 degree
expression.
So
art is expression.
In the words of Adina Monsoon and Absolutely Fabulous. Well, it looks like a load of bollocks, so it must be worth something.
Art is expression instantiated in technique.
So
that was my best definition.
Does that have
technical excellence?
Does that have value?
Not necessarily.
So
only if the expression is intriguing.
Okay, so let's just take this,
including its author.
Let's take this in stages. So who owns the art?
Well, if it's made of language, nobody, because it's a recombination of words which are public domain assets.
Yeah.
And those, let's say it's a poem or a novel or a paper or a scientific paper. So the IP of the language is not owned by the originator.
Yeah. So
because
who was the one who wrote the essay? It's like the author is not the author. It's the reader.
So the author is using some asset.
Yes,
so the author is using some assets.
So wait, so hold on, let me.
The language is public.
So let me.
And public and fair use.
Doesn't cut up meat for his own good. No, he does cut up for his own good. The butcher and the baker.
What about the skinner?
But he didn't necessarily invent the meat cutting technique.
But the reason why they do that work is to feather their own nest.
Yeah.
They don't do it out of the goodness of their own heart.
So, but an artist is different.
Artists sometimes do.
Artist is different, and so it's not about
to express themselves.
It's not for me.
If you're going to harness your product within an
art is not a product.
Well, whatever it is you produce within an intellectual property system. What's the carrot that's making you do it? Oh, right, okay. If it's art, then I just did it because I wanted to.
No, it's not about.
I wanted to be remembered forever. Mozart.
Raise the carpenters and the electricians who make a Hollywood movie.
So that's because art has become a commodity.
Yeah.
Well, is a Hollywood movie art?
Of course it is. Of course it is. So let me tell you about the thing with Mirror Shot is that when we put it together, the idea was that we put together a collective of people to create art, and we wanted to, and I suppose, in fact, let's talk about Mirror Shot. My theory about art.
On this and Napster.
My theory is that, mate, Jesus.
So
you're with Lars. You're in the Lars Ulrich camp. Yeah. You have a big. Let's not even go there. So,
unpack
is a reflection, and also the way humanity and culture is able to criticize and look back at itself. The importance of that,
or laud itself,
the importance of that cannot be overstated, because it's the only way it can criticize itself properly, no matter what structures already exist. If that criticism is controlled by monetary structures or popularity, it then becomes pointless. A perfect example of this is, wait, let me finish, is pop music. Pop music becomes beholden to the labels that pay for it. So it can't criticize them. It can't really be constructive in the way that art is supposed to function. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. I know. So wait, hold on.
Experience in the 15th century. What you see was the difference in the Renaissance was the different kinds of contracts. So Battendorf,
but that's not a commodity.
Traces in Venice the transition of painting contracts from being a certain amount of gold leaf and a certain amount of lapis lazuli in the blue on the wall of a certain number of yards versus a new Renaissance. That was a medieval contract.
Yes.
So
at that point, it wasn't exactly. At that point, it was a commodity.
You had the artist come in, which was a new contract form, which was we're going to have 5 figures, 3 saints, Jesus and Mary. And so the contract was based on the quality of the depiction of people and their perspective. And so you didn't then account for the gold or the lapis.
So that is. Let me finish.
Created a new marketplace.
We haven't allowed Jay to finish his point.
So that is a modern construction. The 15th, 16th, and 18th century are modern times. Art has existed since the beginning of humanity, and all through that period, art wasn't a commodity. What it was a way of expression, and art wasn't experienced by, and don't get me wrong, you can look at artisanal ways of making things and doing that, but that doesn't encompass the whole of art.
And funding.
Yeah, that doesn't encompass the whole of art. So what we're at now is a point where we've been so ingrained in that commoditization of art that we feel that that's the only place art can exist in.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
But we are. Like, if you go to any fine art, look, go to Sotheby's, go to Christie's, and tell them that art should be free, and they'll turn around to you and say, "You can fuck off."
But
because
look at the New Athens artists.
I know.
Admit to look at.
I'm not
They
saying
make their work to educate and inform.
That
yes, I know, but you can't help get.
But the point is that. But the point is that.
New Athens artists.
But the point is that
by default you're already commoditizing.
Commoditizing, exactly.
Yes, so you call them the New Athens artists.
I'm commoditizing.
They belong to you.
I'm not commoditizing them.
Yeah, and you do the same with me.
I'm creating a movement.
Your PR.
I'm creating a movement.
So hold on.
So I'm not getting cash out of it.
So wait. So if you go down to the on the granular level, the that By commoditizing art, what you do is you starve future artists, because if art can only be seen by a select few, there are a whole load of other people that won't be able to be inspired by it. And so, as an artist, and this comes to me, this is a personal view. I don't mean that this has to be everybody's point of view, because yes, some people will go into art to make money. But I feel like if you go into art to make money, and that's your fundamental thing, then you are also going to be beholden to the people that pay that money. And therefore, it's always going to be difficult to criticize or actually shine a light on that. And it's important. It's important at this time right now.
You're limited already.
But it's not just limitations. I haven't got to the point that I'm going to come to that point. And it's important at times like now, because when you have a system that constructs reality around you, that controls what you see and how you see it, and also controls things like the media and news, the only true form of self-criticism is art. And yes, you can make the argument that the news itself is a form of art because it's television and so on and so forth. But it's the people that stand outside the system that aren't being held or being controlled by it that are able to then be the pariahs. Yes, they are maligned. Don't get me wrong. It has always been the case. Art has always been a way of making fun of the organizations, and people have been put in prison. People, I mean, look at people like Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, all these people. It's not, it didn't happen by chance that most of the people that were at the forefront of certain sciences, when the sciences were thought of as alchemy, were also artists. It's not, it's not also a chance that if you look at the original forms of Freemasonry, I'm not talking about the modern form of Freemasonry, but if you look at how the ancient Egyptians and also the certain Jewish sects encoded things and numerology into their art form, that it was the artists that did that. It's not by chance. It isn't. And so if you now commoditize that, what you do is you starve whatever the societal class system is of access to that art. And also so they don't have access to certain points of information. And by doing that, you then actually create a system where whoever the artist is not a true artist in the concept of what I'm talking about as an artist. So yes, you can say, yeah, people need to get paid. Okay, but there are other systems. The patronage system existed beforehand. And in which case an artist was paid by a wealthy landowner or what's it called again? Certain people to be able to talk about and also communicate art. But they didn't have to be paid for it. But it was at that time as well, during the Renaissance, that certain people realized that the amount of, if there was a certain painter or artist or sculptor who then died, the value of his artwork became higher because there was less of it around.
And so hard limit on
exactly, there was a hard limit of supply side of things. And at that point, certain families like the Medicis started to,
or the Saatchis.
Yeah, I mean, yes. This is, I'm talking like, they started to commoditize it, and that created the world that we currently understand. And the reality before that, it wasn't really as commoditized as it is now. And what the internet does, and what computer games and so on and so forth do, is they give the ability to actually democratize art in a way that we wouldn't have had before. If you think about what goes into making a computer game, there are super skilled graphic designers, super skilled musicians, all those sort of things. If you wanted to pay each one of them individually as a person to make that thing for you, it costs you thousands and thousands of pounds. Yeah. But you can buy it for like 20 quid. Yeah. So wait, hold on. But wait. Now, that is because we exist in that system. But if they were all allowed to do work and create work continually without having to rent massive studios and so on and so forth, then you wouldn't have to charge anyone for that stuff. In reality, the concept of ownership, pardon?
People pay for the studio in which they do it.
I mean, we go back to the patronage system.
Yeah, but if everybody can get their computer games for free off Kim.com, then that means
Kim.com.
Kim.com.
I mean, that Kim.
Well, if everybody can get the computer game for free, then who pays the computer game producers?
Why do they need to be paid?
Well, because
I mean, I do stuff for free all the time. I mean, I understand your point. I understand your point.
get people to, if you want to organise people into do something.
Money is a motivator.
Yeah.
Well, you say that, but we did that with Mirror Shot, and no one got paid originally.
Okay, so on that note,
6 years we managed to create the world's first ever VR show.
On that note, we have
Well,
a friend of the show.
We all did.
Camera one.
We all did. That's the thing, is like, if you agree on an artistic goal and you say, right, look, we're trying to create this thing, and you create a world where all those people understand that the thing itself is more important than any one individual, then you can create art without anyone benefiting from it.
What you need,
commodity is the idea.
What you need.
That's what
you need to do is have art along with entrepreneurship, along with IP invention of new scientific and engineering innovations. You have voting, and you have education, and you make these public, which the originators of those activities are paid by the state, by the collective, with a knowledge standard cryptocurrency, which allows us to reward public service in all of its economic forms.
Well, I mean, there's
making videos, making art should be, if you do that, you should get a wage for being a cultural critic. But
I mean, there's
it's a useful activity for the collective
for culture itself
in the culture.
Lorenzo, I saw an interesting thing on Instagram today that 50 million was giving to
other picture platforms are also available.
Pubs by the government over lockdown, over COVID, whatever, and the whole music industry asked for less than 50 million.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is, this goes back to the point. This goes back to the point. This goes back to the point about how what we prioritize needs to be refocused, because if it's like people have gone, right, even look at lockdown, everyone's like, oh, we can't lose banks, we can't lose this, we can't lose that.
What about the artists? It's like,
but and it's like, and then everyone goes, oh yeah, but you know, artists. I'm like, cool. At some point, when the BBC, other TV platforms are also available, runs out of content, what are you going to do? Genuinely, what are you going to do? Like, what happens then?
Well, then we get new content creators in.
But the fact is that they've all gone bust, and they don't have they've had to sell all their cameras.
That's what this location is for. That's what this location is for. Come, if you're a creative person, come to the New Athens, come to Mornington Media in the bunker here. Contact us in all of the forms. Come to the Facebook group, the facebook.com/group/the New Athens. Come and through Jay, through Christabel, through Oliver, through myself, and all of our other guests, come into the collective, and we will give all of our infrastructure for you to help you create and to help you join the collective. It might cost you too, but at least there's 50k coming in next week. Thanks, bounce back. We have a friend of the show. We have a friend of the show who's just zoomed in.
Hello.
Hi,
Jacob. Here we go.
Hello, Jacob.
I can't hear Jacob.
So
just Jacob out.
Just kind of sound going. So one of the elements of the New Athens blockchain think tank that we're building up is what we're calling.
I'm genuinely drunk.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't drunk for so long.
What we're calling TTXN.
Okay.
The think tank exchange.
Oh, there's a bit of feedback there.
So we're trying. So one of the ways in which we're trying to create a bullhorn for creative and innovative people.
Is that what you've got this for?
Is to a bullhorn for creative and innovative people is to create a think tank exchange where startups can come to who have energy and innovation can come together with the R&D departments of think tanks, which are ossified, fossilized, kind of ancient infrastructure. We get down a bit, which can produce R&D and can produce the papers and can produce the research, but doesn't have the energy to create the startups, to create the innovation instantiated in the world. So we're trying to do these tank ups, which is a think tank and a startup coming together. And our first, we're not introducing him. Okay. So in our first instantiation of this live here, here is Jacob, who creates microgreens creates microgreens planting systems to go in hydroponics in your house or in a
amazing bunker. I need to hook you up with someone.
Hello, Jacob. Where are you in the world?
Do we have sound now for Jacob?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
I can hear you. Can the stream hear you? Have you? Is it on the headphones?
I've lost you on video, Lorenzo.
Where are you?
I can see myself. I'm in my flat.
If you get another
you got rid of your video, that's why.
If you get another tab up, Jacob, with the link, then you can see the stream.
Can you see us now?
You can see the stream as well.
I was watching earlier. I've seen the room. I'm familiar. I watched you with Mike Martin the other day as well. I don't need both apps running. You're both looking lovely. Hello.
Thank
hey,
you.
I want to show.
Jay's also here. This is Christabel. So here are some microgreens.
There's Jay.
Jay, I really.
Yeah, that kind of works.
I was listening earlier. Look, I just say a few things. I've had a mad week. It's crazy apocalypse, an end of apocalypse. Anyway, but there's a few things I want to touch on. Artistry,
pandemic, Chaipocalypse. The 4 horsemen of the hashtag Chaipocalypse.
Probably shouldn't put the boom right above the speaker. The headphones.
So
go on, Jacob.
Artistry, touching on pure creativity, creation from 0 to 1, being the seed of communities, and also the restrictions of language, which is a really restricted thing. It's interesting to discuss things, but it's all about doing these days, and these are pea shoots. So
lovely.
Your pea shoots look very beautiful.
Yes,
that's not a euphemism, by the way.
And these are taking the bull by the horns.
It's about for me. It's about nutrition.
That's what she said.
And
Jacob. Okay, we met.
Jacob, tell us.
We had Fred over at the New Athens the other day talking about how you were growing microgreens. He's creating hydroponic greenhouses out in Iceland for you to take greens out there.
Wow.
And then we're looking.
Yeah, I was literally about to say Hugo.
Shout out to Hugo.
We should hook you up with Hugo.
Hugo. Yeah, we'll bring him on.
Shout out to Hugo.
Socialite.
He's not going to be out for a while. He's leaving the country.
We'll zoom him in. Anyway, sorry, Jacob. We've just got. So we had Fred over the other day, who was talking about your microgreens and saying, look. So Fred's creating these hydroponic greenhouses in Iceland, and then we're gonna try and take the excess hemp and turn it into hempcrete, and then we're gonna try and get the excess electricity and turn it into crypto. But then he mentioned you as the key activation, of how to grow the greens. Hey, how are you guys?
Hi guys.
How to grow the greens in the hydroponic scenario.
It's getting wild.
So tell us a little bit about that. We've got loads of people or see the audience piling in here.
Okay,
so much
over to you, Jacob.
It goes 2 ways. If you want to get up in the morning and have energy, you need good nutrition. So this is about nutrition, having the knowledge as individuals to get it into the body, but also, we're going to have a food shortage. We're going to have food problems. The salad in the supermarkets already wasn't very good.
So, Jacob, I mean, one thing to say here as well is that you can print money, you can print all kinds of things, but you can't print a supply chain, and you can't print food to a point.
Correct.
I think.
So lots of people are talking about problems, as I said before, but where the solutions are is actually waking up and doing something about it. Now, in the end, we do everything so we can have time and well-being. In the end, we can figure out as many solutions as we want and use our egos to discuss them, but ultimately we want time and love and good well-being and good health.
Absolutely.
And so if you start actually with those things, you'll be surprised at what you get in your life. And abundance is the key. Sentiment. And that comes into creativity. It comes into sound, and healing is a very big part of it. We use a lot of sound and good resonance in our approach. But also
playing frequencies.
And sacred geometry.
Yes,
sacred.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh yes. I mean, I think that it's one of the most amazing times to be alive, because
absolutely
there are so many concepts that in the past weren't widely accepted,
widely known about, thanks to YouTube.
I disagree about them being widely known about. There's a lot of people that knew about them.
Yes, but they were scattered, and they didn't inform other people on a very high frequency basis,
or that the status quo didn't agree with them, so therefore the general consensus was that a lot of people know about them.
Back to Jacob.
I was just going to just add to that it was never known about.
We just lost some sound.
Oh, we're having a technical. Let me see if I can sort it out. Let me see if I can sort this out.
I was going to add to Jay's point by saying that the reason we didn't know about it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Christabel was just trying to expose herself.
Yeah. The people who are doing the solutions and making the solutions happen are doers, and they're not talkers, they're doers. The internet has filled up gradually and mostly with talkers, and we're starting to come to a precipice now, a tip over, where doers are willing to be talkers, but only about the doing. We haven't known about it, but it's always been there. And the thing is, the non-physical side of our lives is ever so present, in fact, more so present than the physical. People try to focus on the physical. The last 200 years of society has tried to train us to focus on the physical, which is really a very, very small part of our experience.
So that's the point I was making about digital sovereignty as well, is that at some point, the metaphysical representation of ourselves will be accepted to
Narcissus looking into the lake.
It will be just as important as the physical side.
But then what we get back to is the Vandal, the Visigoth, whacking you on the head while you're staring into your reflection in your smartphone mirror, black mirror. And so what Jacob can then do is get us back to self-sufficiency and back to plugging into, generating something into a network, pushing energy back into a network of, we're going to grow organic stuff really well with frequency. I
want to go back. I want to go to a famous. Remember the famous advert? I think it was NatWest or somebody in the 90s to give a man a fish or give a man a fishing net. There's a better analogy, which is if you go to a man's house and you dig him a pond and you fill it with fish.
I think it might have been UNICEF.
It might have been UNICEF. It might have been a charity. That's right, Greenpeace.
Thank you, Anna.
You go to a man's house. You haven't. The points are dancing around, but we're trying to give them the pond full of fish, the net as well, a nice cooked dinner, and all kinds of other knowledge with which to then use it. But the thing is, we're in a world now where there are very few doers. And so by the time we actually come to people with this solution, they're saying, well, how the hell did you do that? And that's a better net than we've seen before. And thank you very much. We don't have an agenda to earn or gain or goal. This is a vibrational experience.
I like this, man.
I know that things will grow from it.
Give this Jacob man a bigger net.
Absolutely. Jacob, where can we find you? I've got your Instagram. We can put that out. Have you got, is there anyone else who can find you before you come on the show next week?
This is a very new thing. I mean, I went to India 7 years ago, lived there for 4 years and did permaculture and built energetic practice centers and sort of worked on myself. Before that, I was in the city. So I was known for watches, and I've written 2 books on watches and over 200 articles on vintage watches. And so I'm known in the corporate horology world, actually, in strategy. And you were talking about content.
Corporate horology.
But I don't practice that anymore. Right now, it's the Umbrella brand. You can find us in practice, and we'll be opening a shop later this year.
Okay. Well, let's get together, Jacob, on the show live in person, so we're not like crunching ourselves down into the little area.
I love that.
So
thank you for including
next
me,
week.
and thanks
Come on
for
the
your
show.
thoughts.
I mean, you're in London, right? And what's the company called that's going to be the shop?
We also have a live studio audience who wants to do a shout out.
We are called the Umbrella Corporation.
Oh, I thought that was a placeholder. I thought you were saying the Umbrella Corporate is called.
Hold on, wait.
Is it
called Umbrella Corp?
Yeah, yes.
Is it called Umbrella Corp? This is friggin' Resident Evil.
Yes.
Once again, it comes back to
Resident Good. He's Resident Good.
It comes back to my point about art and life. Art imitating life and life imitating art.
Yes. Life imitating heart. Anyway, we got some studio audience to come in and so you can actually see who's been watching. Hey, how are you? Lorenzo. Plaisir. Ravi de faire ta connaissance. Alors, vas-y. Hey, how are you? Come in. We're going live on YouTube.
Oh, where?
Hey, guys in the corridor, come in. We're just going to say goodbye to
Everybody
the audience.
Are we?
Well, let's have a break for now. We can
Okay, fine. We come back and have
we can have a break. You know.
I need some food.
Exactly. Hey, can you get them all in here?
You guys have been going for a while.
In here, please. Everybody in. Everybody in. Come on, everyone in. So we have a live studio audience here tonight, who of the New Athens, who various fellow travellers, really fascinating people in different fields. And we'll be talking to them all and bringing them all into our new pro-human future.
You're in the shop.
Yeah, come around here. There's a fisheye here, so we can go back. Crowded behind, you need to get in shot of this camera. Well done, everyone. Like Stalin, I clap. You know, so you can always tell, as you said, you can always tell the difference between a communist leader and a capitalist leader, because a communist leader, even though the applause is for them, they clap the collective as well. You know, even though they're being.
Does that mean I'm the capitalist then?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what's happening. Even though I'm
even though it's at you as being, I guess,
We're state aid.
You're state aid now. You're state aid. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks for coming along. Now we're going to head into Independence Day in a couple of hours, and we're going to be creating a new reality, pro-human future, to allow ourselves to come out of this pandemic, creating new value, creating new startups, creating new entrepreneurship. And where are we going? Going right in here, and allowing us to come back with new education platforms. Yeah, exactly, and new means of taking our blockchain future to allow people to self-actualize and to get out of depression.
If you don't do that, you'll be cancelled.
Yeah,
cancel culture.
Yeah, bye. Yeah, you can't come to the bunker. So thank you, everybody, and we will be back in a bit, creating new live streams on us. Now we move to a Sunday basis. So when we're done with this live stream, go to the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the New Athens, and join us for the debate between episodes. Then we're back on the channel on Sunday and every Sunday, and then moving through the week. We'll have more guests. We'll have Jacob on. We'll have Jay on again. And we'll have all of our friends coming down to talk about all their fascinating projects. Do join us in the future. If you like it, leave a like. If you like the content, please subscribe and share widely. And I think we're going to be rolled out by Oliver on. Oh, okay. The guitar's coming. So thank you so much for coming tonight. Independence Day tomorrow. And
down, bitches.
Yeah, no cock down. Down with the cock down.
Good guys, very well.
That
Thank
descended
you so
into an
much.
absolute chaos. It just that proves my point about entropy. Entropy is the state of everything.